For months, the retired teacher struggled to raise 6 black daughters alone, hiding a devastating secret. When the oldest girl found his old diary, her hands trembled as she discovered the real reason he chose them. The alarm buzzed at 6:30 a.m., same as every morning. Robert Collins opened his eyes to the familiar silence of his 2-story house. His hand reached for the empty space beside him, touching the cold sheets where Sarah used to sleep. 3 years, and he still couldn't break the habit. Another day, he muttered, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. His bare feet touched the hardwood floor, and he winced at the cold. The house was always cold now, no matter how high he set the thermostat. The morning routine hadn't changed in years. Shower, shave, dress. Coffee maker gurgling in the kitchen. Toast popping up, slightly burnt because he always forgot to adjust the setting. The news droned on the small TV in the corner, filling the silence. Robert stood at his kitchen counter, silver hair still damp from the shower, when the phone rang. The community center's number flashed on the screen. "Robert, it's Linda from the center. Are you still coming in today? We've got a full house for the reading program." "Wouldn't miss it," he said, grateful for the distraction. Teaching had been his life for 35 years, and even retirement couldn't keep him away from it completely. "Be there in an hour." He grabbed his worn leather briefcase, the same one Sarah had given him on their 20th anniversary, and headed out. The March air bit through his jacket as he walked to his car. The neighborhood was quiet. Most people already gone to work, kids on their way to school. At the community center, the usual buzz of activity greeted him. Kids running around, parents dropping off toddlers for daycare, seniors gathering for their morning activities. Robert made his way to the small library section, nodding to familiar faces. Mr. Collins, Tommy, one of his regular students, waved from a reading table. "I finished the whole book you gave me." "That's fantastic. Tommy, ready for another challenge?" Before Tommy could answer, raised voices from the office caught Robert's attention. The door was partially open, and he could hear Linda, the center's director, speaking with someone. "They can't keep separating them," a woman's voice insisted. "These girls have already lost everything else." "I understand, Carol, but finding a home for 6 siblings, it's nearly impossible. Most families can't handle that many children at once." Robert paused, his hand hovering over the bookshelf. 6 siblings? They're good kids, Carol continued, frustration clear in her voice. "The oldest, Jasmine, she's 16 and helps take care of the others. Then there's Maya, 14, Tiana, 12, the twins Zoe and Olivia, they're 10, and little Ashley, who's 8. They're smart, well-behaved, but they're a package deal," Linda sighed. "And being older black children in the system, you know how it is. Most adoptive parents want babies or toddlers." Robert's chest tightened. He remembered the conversations with Sarah, years ago, about adoption. They talked about it after the 3rd miscarriage, but Sarah's health had deteriorated too quickly after that. "Mr. Collins?" Tommy's voice snapped him back to reality. "Are you okay?" "Yes, sorry, Tommy. Just thinking." He pulled a book from the shelf, but his mind stayed on the conversation he'd overheard. 6 girls, separated by the system. His empty house suddenly felt even emptier. The morning reading session passed in a blur. Robert went through the motions, helping kids with their pronunciation, praising their progress, but his thoughts kept drifting to those 6 sisters. During lunch break, he found himself walking to Linda's office. His hand shook slightly as he knocked on the door. "Robert!" Linda looked up from her desk, surprised. "Everything okay with the reading program?" "Yes, fine." He sat down in the chair across from her. I couldn't help overhearing earlier. About the 6 sisters." Linda's expression softened. That's a difficult situation. Tell me more about them." "Robert." Linda leaned forward, concern in her eyes. "I know you've been lonely since Sarah passed, but taking in 6 children, that's a huge responsibility. And at your age, I'm 60, not 90, he said, more sharply than he intended. "I spent my whole life teaching kids. Sarah and I, we always wanted children. These girls have been through a lot," Linda warned. "Their parents, well, there were issues with drugs, abuse. They've been in the system for 2 years now, bouncing between foster homes. The older ones are protective, suspicious of anyone trying to separate them." Robert nodded, Thinking of his empty house with its 5 unused bedrooms, Sarah had always wanted a big family. They decorated each room differently, hoping. "I want to meet them," he said finally. "Robert, are you sure? This isn't like taking in a stray cat. These are 6 young lives we're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about." He straightened in his chair. "I've spent 35 years working with kids. I have a big house, a good pension, and too much time on my hands. At least let me meet them." Linda studied him for a long moment, then picked up her phone. "Let me call Carol, their social worker." "But Robert, don't get their hopes up if you're not serious about this." "I'm serious." That evening, Robert stood in his quiet house, looking at the empty rooms, the ones Sarah had painted yellow, dreaming of a nursery. The blue room that was supposed to be for a boy. The purple room she'd decorated for a girl. He walked into each room slowly, touching the walls, imagining voices, laughter, life. 6 girls. 6 hearts needing a home. His phone sat heavy in his pocket, Carol's number now saved in his contacts. In the master bedroom, he opened Sarah's side of the closet. Her clothes were long gone, donated after her passing, but a scent lingered in the wooden hangers. He touched them gently. "What do you think, love?" he whispered to the empty air. "Should we finally fill those rooms?" The silence seemed different now, expectant rather than empty. Robert took out his phone and dialed Carol's number. "Hello?" Her voice was professional, guarded. "This is Robert Collins. Linda from the community center gave me your number. I'd like to discuss the possibility of adopting 6 sisters." The silence on the other end stretched for a moment. "Mr. Collins, this is a big decision. Why don't you come to my office tomorrow? We can talk about what this would really mean." "I'll be there," he said, looking around at his empty house for what he hoped would be the last time. First thing in the morning, after hanging up, Robert sat on his bed, heart pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. The house seemed to hold its breath, waiting. He reached for his nightstand drawer and pulled out an old leather-bound journal, Sarah's last gift to him. Opening to a fresh page, he began to write. "Dear Sarah, today I made a decision that might change everything. Remember how we always talked about filling these rooms with children? Well, my love, I think it's finally time." The words flowed onto the page as the sun set outside his window, casting long shadows across the empty rooms that might, just might, not be empty much longer. Carol's office smelled like coffee and printer paper. Robert sat in an uncomfortable plastic chair, his hands folded in his lap, while she flipped through his paperwork. "Your financials look solid," she said, pushing her glasses up her nose. "The house is paid off, good pension, excellent credit score. But Mr. Collins, I have to ask, have you ever parented before?" "No," Robert admitted. "Sarah and I couldn't have children. But I've spent my entire career working with kids. Teaching is different from parenting." Carol leaned forward. "These girls need stability, understanding, and someone who can handle their specific needs. They've been through trauma." "Tell me about them," Robert said. "Everything." Carol pulled out 6 folders. Jasmine's the oldest at 16. She's basically been their mother figure since they were removed from their birth parents. Straight-A student, but guarded. Doesn't trust easily. She opened another folder. Maya, 14. Brilliant at math, but she's been in 3 fights this year defending her sisters. Tiana's 12. Quiet. Loves to read. The twins, Zoe and Olivia. They are 10. Complete opposites. Zoe's outgoing. Olivia barely speaks. And Ashley, the youngest, she's 8. Still has nightmares. Robert absorbed every detail, every photo. 6 young faces stared back at him from their files, their eyes holding stories he couldn't yet understand. "When can I meet them?" Carol checked her calendar. "They're in 3 different foster homes right now. It'll take some coordinating. Are you free tomorrow afternoon?" The first meeting was at a park. Robert arrived early, his heart hammering against his ribs. He watched a group of kids playing basketball, wondering which ones might be his future daughters. "Mr. Collins." He turned to see Carol walking toward him with 2 girls. The taller one had her hair in neat braids, her stance protective as she partly shielded the younger girl behind her. "This is Jasmine and Tiana," Carol introduced them. Jasmine's handshake was firm, her eyes analyzing him. "You want to adopt all of us?" "Yes," Robert said simply. "If you'll have me." "Why?" The question was direct, challenging. "Because families shouldn't be separated. He met her gaze steadily. And because my house has been empty for too long. Tiana peeked around her sister. Do you have any other kids? No. It would just be us. What happened to your wife? Jasmine's questions continued, rapid fire. Sarah passed away 3 years ago. Cancer. Robert's voice caught slightly. We always wanted children, but couldn't have them. So we're second choice. Jasmine's tone was sharp. No, Robert said firmly. You're the right choice. The next meeting was with Maya and the twins. They met at a small ice cream shop. The girls initially clustered together like birds on a wire. Maya's questions were just as direct as Jasmine's, but focused differently. What kind of house do you have? Will we have to share rooms? What about school? 5 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, Robert answered. You could pair up however you want, or some could have their own rooms and you'd stay in your current schools. I live in district. Zoe, one of the twins, suddenly piped up. Can we paint our rooms? Of course. Even purple with stars. Her sister Olivia whispered, the first words she'd spoken. Any color you want. Robert smiled. Even purple with stars. The final meeting was with little Ashley. She sat in her current foster mother's living room, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit. Hi, Ashley. Robert knelt down to her level. That's a nice rabbit you have. His name is Hoppy, she said quietly. He keeps the bad dreams away. Does he do a good job? Ashley nodded. Sometimes. But I miss my sisters. Would you like to live with them again? All together. Her eyes widened. Really? All of us? Really? All of you? The home study came next. Social workers inspected every room of Robert's house, checked every cabinet, asked endless questions. He installed new smoke detectors, child-proof cabinets he didn't think needed child-proofing, and bought 6 new beds. The neighborhood watch meeting was less pleasant. 6 teenage girls. Mrs. Peterson from next door frowned. Are you sure you can handle that, Robert? And they're what? His voice was cold. Different, she finished lamely. They are children who need a home, he said firmly. And I'm giving them one. The day they moved in was chaos. 6 girls with varying amounts of belongings, all trying to claim spaces and settle in. Jasmine immediately took charge, directing her sisters like a general. Twins, you take the purple room. Yes. Olivia, we can add stars. Tiana, you're with me in the blue room. Maya gets the yellow one because she needs space to study. Ashley, you get the small one next to Dad, next to Mr. Collins. You can call me Robert, he said quietly. Or whatever you're comfortable with. Dinner that first night was pizza on paper plates because no one had energy to cook. They sat around the dining table that had been empty for so long, the girls casting uncertain glances at each other and their new guardian. So, Robert cleared his throat. Any food allergies I should know about? Tiana's allergic to peanuts, Jasmine answered automatically. And Olivia doesn't like cheese. Noted. Any favorite foods? Spaghetti. Ashley piped up. Tacos, said Zoe. Mac and cheese, Olivia whispered. We'll try everything, Robert promised. And you can help me learn to cook what you like. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Robert heard soft footsteps in the hallway. He opened his door to find Ashley standing there, clutching Hoppy. Bad dream, he asked gently. She nodded. Want some hot chocolate? Another nod. In the kitchen, Robert warmed milk while Ashley sat at the counter, her feet dangling from the stool. My old foster dad didn't let us have hot chocolate, she said quietly. Well, I think hot chocolate is perfect for chasing away bad dreams. He added a handful of mini marshmallows to her mug. Want to tell me about the dream? She shook her head. That's okay. We can just sit. They did. The quiet broken only by Ashley's occasional slurp of hot chocolate. Finally, she spoke again. Are you really going to keep all of us? Yes, Robert said firmly. All of you. Promise. Promise. When he took her back upstairs, he found Jasmine waiting in the hallway. She okay? The older sister asked. Just needed some hot chocolate. Jasmine studied him for a moment. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. After Jasmine had guided Ashley back to bed, she turned to Robert. We've had promises before. From foster parents who said they'd keep us together. They all gave up. I'm not giving up, Robert said. This is your home now. All of you. Back in his room, Robert took out his journal again. Dear Sarah, they're here. Our house isn't empty anymore. I'm terrified and excited and overwhelmed. But when Ashley had that hot chocolate tonight, She smiled. Really smiled. And I knew, this is right. This is what we always wanted. He fell asleep to the new sounds of his house, quiet whispers, creaking floorboards, the occasional giggle. For the first time in 3 years, the silence was gone. Dad, Robert, Mr. Collins. Robert jerked awake to the sound of multiple voices calling him from different parts of the house. 6:45 a.m., and chaos had already begun. The hot water's gone. Maya shouted from the upstairs bathroom. I can't find my blue scrunchie. Zoe yelled. Mr. Collins, we need help with Ashley's hair. Jasmine called from downstairs. Robert sat up, rubbing his face. 1 week into being a father of 6, and mornings were still a battlefield. He grabbed his robe and stepped into the hallway. Maya, showers are on a schedule now. We talked about this. Jasmine's voice carried up the stairs. Zoe, check under your bed. Ashley, sit still. I'm trying to help you. In the kitchen, Robert found Jasmine attempting to braid Ashley's hair while simultaneously making lunches. The youngest girl squirmed in her chair. It hurts, Ashley whined. I know, but we have to get it done. Jasmine's fingers worked quickly but clumsily through the tight curls. Mr. Collins, can you finish packing the lunches? I've got 4 more heads to do after this. Robert stared at the half-made sandwiches. Sure, but maybe I should learn to do the hair. Jasmine's hands paused. You want to learn? Well, yes. I should know how to help. Right. It's not easy, she warned. Our hair's different. You need to know about moisture, protective styles, the right products. Then teach me. Oh! Robert pulled out his phone. Linda from the community center. Her daughter owns a hair salon. Maybe she could help. 2 hours later, they were late for school. Ashley's hair was only half done, and Robert had a new appreciation for the complexity of black hair care. I'm calling Linda, he announced over breakfast chaos. We need professional help. That afternoon, Linda's daughter Kim stood in his kitchen, surveying 6 different heads of hair in Robert's confused expression. Okay, hair care 101, she said, pulling out a bag of supplies. First thing, throw out whatever products you bought at the regular store. You need specific stuff for their hair type. Robert grabbed a notebook and started writing as Kim explained about protective styles, silk pillowcases, moisturizing routines. His head spun with terms like pre-poo, co-wash, and edge control. Watch carefully, Kim demonstrated on Ashley's hair. Section it like this. See how the parts should be. Robert's fingers were clumsy, but he tried. By the end of the session, he'd managed 1 decent braid, and his respect for Jasmine's daily efforts had doubled. We'll need weekly sessions, Kim decided. And here's a shopping list. The beauty supply store on 5th Street has everything. The beauty supply store trip turned into a family expedition. Robert pushed a cart while 6 girls filled it with products he couldn't pronounce. No, not that one. Maya corrected when he reached for a bottle. That's for looser curls. We need the thick formula. At the register, the cashier raised her eyebrows at the white man with 6 black girls, but the total made Robert's eyes widen more. Hair care is expensive, Jasmine said quietly. Our foster families usually just gave up. Well, I'm not giving up, Robert said, handing over his credit card. We'll figure this out together. Back home, the bathroom became a classroom. Robert learned about deep conditioning, detangling, and the importance of being gentle. His fingers gradually became more confident, though he still needed help with the more complex styles. Not bad, Tiana said one morning as he finished her braids. Only a little crooked. Progress, Robert smiled. Now, who needs help with homework? The kitchen table transformed into homework central after school. Math worksheets, history papers, and science projects spread across the surface. I hate fractions, Zoe groaned, pushing away her math book. Let me see. Robert pulled her paper closer. I taught this for years. Here's a trick. Olivia, the quiet twin, actually smiled when Robert helped her with her reading assignment. You do the voices better than our last foster dad, she whispered. The first real test came when Ashley had a meltdown about missing her old foster home. I want Miss Patricia, she screamed, tears streaming down her face. She knew how to make the pancakes right. Robert knelt beside her. You miss her pancakes? And she had a cat. And she let me watch cartoons before bed. Well, Robert said slowly, we can't bring Miss Patricia here, but maybe we can make our own pancake recipe. One that's special for us. Ashley hiccuped. Can we put chocolate chips in them? Absolutely. And about the cartoons, I think we can work something out. That weekend, they experimented with pancake recipes until the kitchen was covered in flour and everyone had sticky fingers. The final version, with chocolate chips and a hint of cinnamon, was declared better than Miss Patricia's by Ashley herself. The first family meeting happened that Sunday evening. Robert had bought a whiteboard and markers, determined to establish some structure. Okay, he uncapped a marker. Let's talk about what's working and what isn't. The bathroom schedule isn't working, Maya said immediately. There's never enough hot water. Noted. We'll look into a bigger water heater. What else? We need more study space, Jasmine added. The kitchen table gets too crowded. The basement could be converted into a study area, Robert suggested. What about chores? They created a rotating schedule for dishes, laundry, and general cleaning. Robert wrote everything down, adding their suggestions and concerns. One more thing, he said finally. What should you call me? The girls exchanged glances. What do you want us to call you? Tiana asked. Whatever you're comfortable with. Robert, Mr. Collins, Dad, it's your choice. Can we think about it? Jasmine asked. Take all the time you need. That night, unable to sleep, Robert wrote in his journal. Dear Sarah, today I learned how to braid hair. I'm terrible at it, but the girls are patient with me. Ashley had a rough day missing her old foster home, and it hit me. They've had other parents, other homes. I'm not just starting fresh with them, I'm trying to heal old wounds. But today, when we made those pancakes, for a moment, we felt like a real family. A knock interrupted his writing. It was Olivia, the quieter twin. Bad dream? He asked, remembering Ashley's similar visit. She shook her head. Can't sleep. Too quiet. Want to talk about it? Olivia sat on the edge of his bed, fiddling with her pajama sleeve. In our last foster home, they made us be quiet all the time. Said kids should be seen, not heard. Robert's chest tightened. Well, that's not how it works here. You can be as loud or as quiet as you want to be. Really? Really? This is your home now. You get to be yourself here. She was quiet for a moment. Then, can I call you Dad? Not now, but maybe someday. Whenever you're ready, Robert said softly. No pressure. After she left, Robert added to his journal entry. P.S. Sarah, I think we're going to be okay. Different, maybe a little messy, but okay. He fell asleep to the sound of whispered conversations and creaking floorboards, the house no longer empty, no longer silent, but full of life and learning and love. The call came at 2:15 p.m. Robert was organizing the newly converted basement study space when his phone rang. The school's number flashed on the screen. Mr. Collins? This is Principal Warren from Lincoln Middle School. There's been an incident involving Maya. Robert's heart sank. What kind of incident? There was an altercation. We need you to come in immediately. He found Maya sitting outside the principal's office, ice pack pressed to her knuckles. Her jaw was set, eyes hard. What happened? He asked, sitting beside her. Nothing. Bruised knuckles aren't nothing. Before Maya could respond, Principal Warren opened his door. Mr. Collins, Maya, please come in. Inside the office, a white boy sat with his parents, tissue held to his bloody nose. The mother glared at Maya. As I was telling the Petersons, Principal Warren began. Fighting is strictly against school policy. He deserved it, Maya muttered. Maya, Robert warned quietly. Tell him what you said. Maya suddenly turned to the boy. Tell them what you called Tiana. The boy shrunk in his chair. His father spoke up. Boys will be boys. She broke his nose. After he called my sister a monkey, Maya's voice shook with rage. After he told her to go back to Africa. After he pulled her hair and said it felt like steel wool. Robert's hands gripped the armrests. Is this true? She's lying, Mrs. Peterson said quickly. Tommy would never dash. I heard him, a new voice said. They turned to see a teacher in the doorway. Ms. Rodriguez stepped into the office. I was coming around the corner when it happened. Tommy said those things, and more. The principal cleared his throat. Even so, violence is not the answer, Dash. What's your policy on racial harassment? Robert interrupted, his voice dangerously calm. Well, because I'd be very interested to know why I'm just hearing about this now, when my daughter Tiana has apparently been dealing with this abuse. Abuse is a strong word, Mr. Peterson protested. Is it? Robert stood up. My daughter was racially harassed, physically assaulted, and when her sister defended her, she's the one in troubles. Mr. Collins I want to see your anti-racism policy, Robert continued. I want to know what sensitivity training your staff receives. And I want to know why a child felt comfortable enough to use racial slurs in your school. The room fell silent. Maya, Robert turned to his daughter. Go wait outside. After she left, Robert faced the principal. I spent 35 years teaching. I know how schools handle bullying, or don't handle it. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to implement proper diversity training. You're going to create clear consequences for racial harassment. And you're going to make sure every student knows that this behavior will not be tolerated. Or what? Principal Warren asked. Or I take this to the school board, and the local news, and every civil rights organization I can find. The ride home was quiet. Maya stared out the window, still holding the ice pack. Am I in trouble? She finally asked. For defending your sister? No. Robert sighed. But we need to talk about better ways to handle these situations. I tried telling teachers before. They didn't do anything. I know. And that's wrong. But I don't want you getting hurt. Or getting expelled. What am I supposed to do? Just let them say those things. Robert pulled into their driveway. We'll figure it out together. But Maya, I'm proud of you for standing up for Tiana. Inside, they found Tiana on the couch, pretending to read. Her eyes were red. Why didn't you tell me? Robert asked gently, sitting beside her. Didn't want to cause trouble, she whispered. The other foster homes, when we complained, they'd say we were being difficult. That's why they'd separate us. Robert pulled her into a hug. This is different. You're not going anywhere, and you don't have to suffer in silence. That evening, Robert called a family meeting. All 6 girls gathered in the living room. We need to talk about what happened today, he began. And about what happens next. Are we moving schools again? Olivia asked quietly. No. We're going to fight for change in the school you have. He outlined his plan. Meetings with the school board, pushing for policy changes, working with civil rights organizations. The girls listened, expressions ranging from skeptical to hopeful. But most importantly, he added, I need you to tell me when things like this happen. No more hiding it. No more handling it alone. We're a family now. What if they don't listen? Zoe asked. Then we make them listen. Together. Later that night, a knock came at his door. It was Jasmine. You really meant that? She asked. About fighting for change? Every word. She hesitated. Our birth parents, they never fought for us. The foster parents either ignored the problems or sent us away. Well, I'm not them. Robert met her eyes. I'm your father now, if you'll have me. And I will always fight for you. The next morning, Robert made calls. To civil rights attorneys. To local advocacy groups. To other parents. By afternoon, he had a meeting scheduled with the school board. But first, he took Maya for ice cream. Your hand feeling better? He asked as she spooned hot fudge. Yeah. She paused. Thanks. For believing me. For not being mad. Maya, look at me. He waited until she met his eyes. I will always believe you. And I will always be on your side. That's what fathers do. Is that what you are now? Our father. If you want me to be. She was quiet for a moment, pushing ice cream around her bowl. The kids at school, they say weird things. About you being white, us being black. Like it doesn't make sense. Does it make sense to you? Yeah, because you actually care. You learn about our hair. And you listen when we talk. And you. She trailed off, blinking hard. And I love you, Robert finished softly. All of you. That's what makes a family, not matching skin colors. That night, Robert wrote in his journal. Dear Sarah, today I truly became a father. Not because of papers or legal rights, but because I fought for our daughters. Yes, our daughters. Because I know you'd love them too. Maya has your spirit, fierce, protective. Tiana has your quiet strength. They're all so different, so perfect in their own ways. The world isn't always kind to them. But I promise you, I'll spend every day making sure they know they are loved, they are valued, they are worth fighting for. A soft knock interrupted his writing. This time it was all 6 girls. Family movie night. Ashley asked hopefully, clutching Hoppy. Robert smiled. Of course. What are we watching? As they piled onto the couch, arranging themselves around him like puzzle pieces, Robert felt something settle in his chest. They weren't perfect. The world wasn't perfect. But they were family, and that was worth fighting for. Robert stared at the stack of bills on his kitchen table. School supplies, clothes, hair products, groceries for 7 people, the new water heater installation. It all added up faster than he'd expected. His pension had been enough when it was just him. But now, Dad! Ashley's voice startled him. He quickly shuffled the bills into a folder. In the 2 months since the school incident, all the girls had gradually started calling him Dad. It still made his heart skip every time. What's up, sweetheart? Can I join the ballet class? They are having sign-ups at school. Robert's chest tightened. Another expense. Let me think about it. Okay. Ashley's face fell slightly, but she nodded. After she left, Robert pulled out his calculator. Even with careful budgeting, they were cutting it close. He'd already dipped into his savings twice. The doorbell rang. Through the window, he saw a familiar car. Social services. Surprise inspection, Carol announced when he opened the door. Standard procedure for the first 6 months. Robert led her through the house, his mind racing through all the things that might be wrong. The basement study space wasn't quite finished. The twins' room was a mess. The grocery shopping needed to be done. Carol took notes as she walked, her face unreadable. In the kitchen, she paused at the folder of bills peeking out of Robert's briefcase. Financial stability is crucial, she said quietly. We're fine, Robert said quickly. Just adjusting to the new budget. Mr. Collins dash. Robert, please. Robert, taking on 6 children is expensive. If you're struggling dash, we're not struggling. I'm handling it. Carol's expression softened. There are resources available. Support groups for single parents, financial assistance programs dash. I said I'm handling it. His tone was sharper than intended. After she left, Robert leaned against the kitchen counter, exhausted. He hadn't told the girls about the financial strain. They'd already been through so much, lost so much. Dad? Jasmine stood in the doorway. Was that social services? Just a routine check. She crossed her arms. Are they going to separate us? No, Robert said firmly. Never. I saw the bills, she admitted. I can get a part-time job. Maya too. She's old enough dash. Absolutely not. Your job is school? That's it. But dash, no buts. I'm the parent here. I'll figure it out. That evening, trying to distract himself, Robert decided to cook dinner instead of ordering pizza. He was reaching for a pot on the high shelf when it happened. His foot slipped on the freshly mopped floor, and he went down hard. The crash brought all 6 girls running. Dad! I'm fine. He tried to stand, but pain shot through his ankle. Just slipped. Don't move, Jasmine ordered. Maya, get ice. Tiana, call 911. No ambulance, Robert protested. It's just a sprain. You can't even stand up. An hour later, Robert sat in the emergency room, surrounded by his daughters. The doctor confirmed a sprained ankle and mild concussion from hitting his head on the counter. You'll need to stay off that ankle for at least a week, the doctor said. And someone should monitor you for the concussion. Robert thought about the stairs in their house, the unfinished chores, the upcoming school meetings. I can't take a week off from life. We'll help, Jasmine said immediately. We can handle things. And they did. The girls created a schedule, dividing up chores and responsibilities. Maya and Jasmine took turns helping him up and down the stairs. Tiana organized his medications. The twins kept Ashley entertained. But lying in bed that first night, unable to sleep, Robert heard them talking. What if he can't take care of us anymore? Olivia's whisper carried through the thin walls. He can, Jasmine insisted. We just have to help more. But social services dash. We're not getting separated. Not again. Robert's heart ached. He reached for his phone, finally swallowing his pride, and called Linda at the community center. I need help, he admitted. The next day, his house filled with support. Linda organized a meal train. Kim came to do the girls' hair. Other parents from the community center offered to help with school pickups. You've got to let people in, Linda told him as she brought over a casserole. You're not alone in this. That afternoon, the therapist Carol had recommended finally came for a home visit. Dr. Martinez sat with each girl individually, then with Robert. They are scared, she said simply. Not just about the accident or money. They are scared of losing their family again. I'm not going anywhere, Robert insisted. They need to believe that. Really believe it. She leaned forward. Tell me about their birth parents. Robert hesitated. There was drug abuse. Physical abuse. The girls don't talk about it much. Trauma like that leaves deep scars. When Tiana sees bills piling up, she remembers going hungry. When Ashley has nightmares, she's back in that house. They've learned that parents leave, that love is conditional. What do I do? Keep showing up. Even when it's hard. Even when you're hurt. Show them that this family isn't going anywhere. That evening, Robert called another family meeting. This time, he was honest. Things are tight right now, he admitted. The accident, the bills, it's a lot. But we're going to figure it out together. No one is leaving. No one is getting separated. We can help, Maya said. For real, Dad? We're not little kids. I know you're not. But I'm still your father. It's my job to take care of you. Maybe, Tiana spoke up softly. Taking care of you is part of how we become a real family. Robert blinked back tears. When did you get so wise? Must be all those books you keep buying me. They laughed, and something tight in Robert's chest loosened. That night, he wrote in his journal, Dear Sarah, I almost let pride get in the way today. I forgot that being strong sometimes means letting others help. Our girls, yes, our girls, they're teaching me as much as I'm teaching them. About love, about family, about what really matters. A knock at his door. Ashley peeked in. Dad, can you still read me a story? Even with your hurt head? Come here, sweetheart. He patted the bed beside him. I've got a special story tonight. It's about a family that isn't perfect, but they love each other anyway. Is it about us? Maybe. He smiled. Want to hear it? As Ashley curled up beside him, Robert realized something. They weren't breaking. They were growing stronger, becoming something new, something real. Jasmine wasn't snooping. Not really. She just needed a pen for her homework, and Dad was napping, doctor's orders for his concussion. His office desk seemed the logical place to look. The leather-bound journal fell when she opened the drawer. It landed open, pages splayed. She meant to just pick it up, but a line caught her eye. Dear Sarah, today I met our daughters for the first time. Her hands trembled as she read more. Jasmine reminds me of you, so fierce in protecting her sisters. Just like you were with your students. She has your strength, Sarah. I wish you could see her. The front door slammed downstairs. Jasmine quickly put the journal back, her mind racing. Dad! Maya's voice called up. We got the groceries. Jasmine found her sisters unpacking bags in the kitchen. Dad was still asleep upstairs, his ankle propped up. Maya, she whispered, pulling her sister aside. I found something. In Dad's office. You were snooping? No. Maybe. Just, he has this journal. He writes to his wife, Sarah. About us. Maya's eyes widened. What does he say? He calls us our daughters. Like we're hers too. The twins walked in, arms full of groceries. What are you whispering about? Nothing, both older girls said quickly. But that night, after Dad had gone to bed, Jasmine gathered her sisters in the basement study space. She told them about the journal. Should we read it? Tiana asked. It feels wrong. But don't you want to know? Zoe pressed. About Sarah? About why he really adopted us. Maybe it'll tell us if he's going to keep us, Olivia whispered. Ashley hugged Hoppy tight. I want to know about our other mom. They debated for an hour. Finally, Jasmine made a decision. Tomorrow, while he's at physical therapy, we'll look together. The next day, Linda picked Dad up for his appointment. The girls waited 10 minutes after the car left, then crept into his office. Here, Jasmine pulled out the journal. Her hands shook as she opened it. Read it, Maya urged. Jasmine began. Dear Sarah, remember how we always talked about having children? 6 seemed like such an impossible number then. But sitting here now, listening to the girls laugh downstairs, I understand. You always said our house was meant for a big family. They read entry after entry. About Dad's fears of not being enough. About learning to do their hair. About fighting the school board. About money troubles. He's been selling things, Maya realized, reading one entry. His collector's items, some of Sarah's jewelry, to pay for everything. Listen to this. Tiana pointed to another page. Sarah, today Ashley called me Dad for the first time. I wish you could have heard it. Remember how we used to practice? How you'd say Daddy in different voices, imagining our future children. These girls, they're everything we dreamed of. Different than we pictured, but perfect in their own way. Olivia wiped her eyes. He really loves us. There's more. Jasmine turned pages. The neighbors whisper. They don't understand how we can be a family. Me white, the girls black. But Sarah, you always said love doesn't see color. You would have fought for them too, wouldn't you? Would have learned to braid hair, would have stood up to that principle. A noise downstairs made them jump. Hello, Linda's voice called. Girls, we're back early. They scrambled to return the journal. But in their rush, pages bent. Jasmine tried to smooth them, heart pounding. What are you doing? They turned to find Dad in the doorway, leaning on his crutches. His face went pale when he saw the journal. I can explain, Jasmine started. Out, he said quietly. Everyone out. They fled downstairs. Linda, reading their faces, made a quick exit. For an hour, they sat in the living room, waiting. Finally, Dad came down. He looked tired. That journal, he said, sitting heavily in his armchair, was private. We're sorry, Jasmine whispered. We just wanted to know. Know what? If you were going to keep us, Olivia blurted. For real? Dad's expression softened. You could have asked me. Would you have told us everything? Maya challenged. About selling your stuff? About the money problems? About Sarah? Ashley added quietly. Dad was silent for a long moment. No, he admitted finally. I didn't want to worry you. But maybe that was wrong. Tell us about her, Jasmine said. Please. He took a deep breath. Sarah was a kindergarten teacher. She loved children, wanted a house full of them. But she got sick before we could. He paused. That journal was my way of keeping her close, of sharing this journey with her. Do you think? Ashley climbed into his lap, careful of his ankle. Do you think she would have liked us? Oh, sweetheart. Dad hugged her tight. She would have loved you. All of you. We read what you wrote, Tiana said. About selling things. About struggling. That's not your concern, Dash. Yes, it is, Maya interrupted. We're family. You taught us that. Jasmine stood up. So we made a decision. We want to help. One by one, her sisters joined her. They explained their plan. Maya and Jasmine would tutor after school. Tiana would help at the community center library. The twins would do face painting at children's parties. All to earn extra money. Absolutely not, Dad started to protest. We're not asking permission, Jasmine said firmly. We're telling you, because that's what family does. We help each other. Dad looked at each of them, tears in his eyes. When did you all get so grown up? When you gave us the chance to, Maya said simply. That evening, the doorbell rang. They opened it to find Mrs. Peterson, their neighbor, holding a casserole. Linda told me about your accident, she said awkwardly. And I wanted to apologize. For before. I see now what you've built here. It's beautiful. More neighbors came. With food, with offers of help, with apologies and new understanding. The house filled with voices, with life. Later, after everyone had gone, Dad gathered them in the living room. He held his journal. I want to read you something, he said, from the day I first saw your files. As he read, his voice steady and sure, 6 girls listened to their story unfold. A story of loss and love, of fear and courage, of a family built not from blood but from choice. That night, Dad wrote a new entry while his daughters slept. Dear Sarah, they found the journal today. And instead of running from the truth, the money problems, the struggles, the fears, they ran toward it. Toward me. You always said children have a way of teaching us what really matters. Our girls prove that today. They're not just my daughters now. They're my teachers, my strength, my heart. A knock at his door. All 6 girls stood there. Family sleepover? Ashley asked. Dad smiled. Why not? They piled onto his bed with pillows and blankets, careful of his ankle. As they settled in, Jasmine spoke softly. Dad, can we write to Sarah too sometimes? I think, he said, his voice thick with emotion. She would love that very much. The girls sat in a circle on Jasmine's bed, a new leather-bound journal between them. Dad had given it to them that morning. For your own letters to Sarah, he'd said simply. Now they stared at the blank pages, pens ready but hesitant. Who goes first? Tiana asked. Oldest to youngest. Maya suggested. Jasmine picked up a pen, took a deep breath, and began to write. Dear Sarah, I'm Jasmine. Your husband, our dad now, has given us so much. But I need to tell you about the day everything changed. The memory came easily. That morning in the community center, when she'd overheard Dad talking to Linda about adoption. She'd been there with her current foster mother, helping with the younger kids' reading program. He looked different, Jasmine wrote. Not like the other potential adoptive parents. They always came with perfect clothes and rehearsed speeches about wanting to save us. He just came with questions. Real ones. About our favorite books. Our dreams, what made us laugh. Maya read over her shoulder. Tell her about the ice cream shop. The first time he took us for ice cream, Jasmine continued, he let us order whatever we wanted. Ashley got chocolate everything, sauce, sprinkles, chips. When it all melted into a mess, he didn't get mad. He just grabbed more napkins and helped her clean up. That's when I started to hope. Really hope. One by one, the girls added their pieces to the letter. Maya wrote about the school fight. He didn't yell when I got in trouble. He listened. Really listened. Then he fought for us, not just with words, but with actions. No one had ever done that before. Tiana's part came next. The first time I brought home a library book, he sat with me while I read it. All 200 pages. When I finished, he had tears in his eyes. Just like your mom, he said. He met you? Sarah. I hope that's okay. The twins wrote together, their handwriting alternating. Remember the purple room with stars? Zoe wrote. He let us paint it ourselves. It got everywhere. On the floor, the windows, in our hair. But he just laughed. And when I couldn't sleep, Olivia added, he sat with me. Every night for weeks. Until the new house didn't feel scary anymore. Ashley was last. She drew pictures in the margins as she wrote. Dear other mom, is it okay if I call you that? Hoppy says hi. Here's my rabbit. Dad says you would have loved him too. I wish you could read me stories like Dad does. He says you had the best voices for characters. They spent hours writing, sharing memories, passing the journal back and forth. Outside, the sun set. Dad's footsteps creaked on the stairs. Everything okay up here? He peeked in. We're writing to Sarah, Ashley announced. Dad's eyes softened. Would you like to hear more about her? They nodded eagerly. Dad sat on the edge of the bed, and for the first time, really talked about his late wife. She was a kindergarten teacher, he began. The kind who knew every student's favorite color, every parent's name. She kept jelly beans in her desk for bad days and had a different silly hat for every holiday. Like my art teacher, Ashley exclaimed. Exactly like that. She loved children. We tried for years to have our own. When we couldn't, he paused. It broke her heart. But she never stopped loving. Never stopped giving. Even in the hospital, she made me promise. Promise what? Tiana asked softly. To keep my heart open. To not let loss make me bitter. He looked around at them. I didn't know then that promise would lead me to you. Jasmine showed him what they'd written. Is this okay? Writing to her like this? It's perfect. His voice was thick. She would have loved this. Loved you? Can we read your entries? Maya asked. The ones from the beginning. Dad nodded. He went to get his journal, and soon they were all squeezed together, listening to the story of their family unfold through his words. Dear Sarah, he read. Today I saw their files for the first time. 6 sisters. 6 hearts needing a home. Remember how we always talked about having 6 kids? You said I was crazy. 6? You'd laugh. We'd need a bigger house. But we bought this big house anyway. Didn't we? Almost like you knew. The entries continued, painting their story from his perspective. The fears, the hopes, the small victories. Tell us more about the day you decided, Ashley begged. The very first day. Dad turned to that entry. Dear Sarah, I stood in our house today, our too quiet, too empty house. Walked through each room we'd decorated for the children we never had. But standing there, I could suddenly see them. Not the babies we'd dreamed of, but real children. With their own stories, their own hearts, their own needs. 6 sisters who need exactly what we have to give, love, space, and a promise to keep them together. They read late into the night, passing both journals around, adding new memories, asking questions. The story of their family grew richer with each page. Can we make this a tradition? Tiana asked, writing to Sarah. Yeah, Maya agreed. Like, on birthdays and stuff. And Mother's Day. Ashley added tentatively. Dad hugged her close. Sarah would be on it. But you know what she'd want most? What? For us to live. Really live. To fill this house with so much love and laughter that heaven itself can hear it. That night, after the girls had finally gone to bed, Dad added a new entry to his journal. Dear Sarah, our daughters wrote to you today. Their words, so honest, so full of hope and love. They would have made you cry happy tears. They call you Other Mom now. They draw pictures for you. They want to know everything about you. Remember how we worried about having enough love? Turns out love doesn't divide, it multiplies. With each memory shared, each story told, our family grows stronger. Not just the 7 of us here on earth, but you too. You're part of this miracle. My love. Your promise kept my heart open. Your love made space for more love. And now? Now we're complete. A soft knock interrupted his writing. It was Jasmine. Dad, can I add one more thing to the letter? He handed her the girl's journal. She wrote quickly. P.S. Dear Sarah, thank you for loving Dad so much that he learned how to love us, for making him promise to keep his heart open, for choosing this house with too many rooms that were waiting just for us. We'll take care of him. We'll fill these rooms with all the love you dreamed of. That's our promise to you. Don't tell Dad, Maya whispered as she helped Tiana hang streamers in the community center. The girls had been planning this surprise for weeks, ever since finding the journal. Miss Linda, are you sure he doesn't suspect anything? Jasmine asked, arranging chairs. Linda smiled, watching the girls transform the space. He thinks he's coming for a regular volunteer meeting. Completely clueless. They'd invited everyone, teachers from school, neighbors, friends from the community center, even Carol from social services. The walls were covered with photos chronicling their journey. Dad learning to braid hair, family game nights, school events, casual moments caught on phone cameras. The cake's here. The twins burst in, carefully carrying a large box. Ashley bounced excitedly. Can I see? They opened the box to reveal a 3-tier cake decorated with purple flowers, Sarah's favorite color. They'd learned from the journal. Around the base, in careful script, thank you for choosing us. He's going to cry, Olivia predicted. Definitely, Zoe agreed. Kim arrived early to do their hair. Special styles for a special day, she said, working efficiently. Though your dad's getting pretty good at this himself. Remember when he tried his first braid? Maya laughed. It looked like a pretzel. But he never gave up, Jasmine said softly. Even when it was hard. The guests started arriving. Mrs. Peterson brought her famous casserole, the one she'd made the day she finally apologized. Ashley's teacher came with a stack of her artwork. The principal, now committed to real change after Dad's advocacy, arrived with news about the school's new diversity program. 5 minutes, Linda called. He just pulled up. The girls gathered near the door, hearts pounding. They heard his familiar footsteps, then his voice talking to Linda. What's all this about a volunteer emergency? Surprise. Dad stopped in the doorway, mouth open. His eyes swept over the decorated room, the gathered crowd, his 6 daughters standing together. What? How? It's a thank you party. Ashley ran forward to hug him. For choosing us. For fighting for us, Maya added. For learning to do our hair, Tiana smiled. For keeping us together, the twins said in unison. For being our dad, Jasmine finished. Dad had to sit down. His eyes were wet as he took in all the photos on the walls, their story told in images. When did you do all this? We had help, Maya gestured to the crowd. Turns out we have a pretty amazing community. The celebration began. People shared stories, teachers talking about the changes they'd seen in the girls, neighbors admitting how wrong their initial judgments had been, Linda recounting the day she'd first told Dad about 6 sisters needing a home. I thought he was crazy, she admitted. Taking on 6 kids at his age, alone. But sometimes the craziest decisions are the most right. Carol stood up next. As a social worker, you see a lot of families. Some work, some don't. But this, she looked at Dad and the girls. This is what we hope for. Not perfection, but love. Real love. The girls had prepared speeches. Maya went first, her voice strong. Before Dad, we were just surviving. Moving from home to home, trying not to hope too much. But he didn't just give us a house, he gave us a future. He taught us that family isn't about matching DNA or skin color. It's about choosing each other every day. Tiana spoke about books and quiet moments. The twins talked about purple rooms and midnight conversations. Ashley showed her art, dozens of pictures of their family, all 7 of them plus Hoppy. Then Jasmine stood up. She held both journals, Dad's and their new one. We found Dad's journal recently, she began. He writes to our other mom, to Sarah, telling her about us, sharing his fears and hopes. We learned that he's been selling his belongings to make ends meet, that he worries about being enough, that he fights for us even when we don't see it. She opened the girl's journal. So we started writing to her too, telling her about the man she loved, the father he's become. And we made a promise to fill this family with all the love she dreamed of. Dad was openly crying now. The girls surrounded him, a group hug that had become natural over the months. There's one more surprise, Maya said. She nodded to Linda, who brought out a large wrap package. Inside was a professional family portrait, all 7 of them plus an empty chair. On the wall behind them hung Sarah's favorite painting, brought down from the attic. The plaque read, "The Collins family, complete." The empty chair. Dad touched it gently. "For Sarah," Ashley explained, "because she's part of our family too." The party continued into the evening. There was dancing, Dad showing off his hilariously outdated moves. Food, including Ashley's chocolate everything ice cream sundaes. Laughter, the twins telling the pretzel braid story to anyone who would listen. Later, at home, they had their own celebration. Movie night with popcorn and pillows piled in the living room. "Dad," Tiana asked during a quiet moment, "will you read us something from your journal?" From the beginning, he opened to the first entry about them. "Dear Sarah, today I saw our future. Not the one we planned, but maybe the one we were meant for all along." As he read, Ashley fell asleep against his shoulder. The twins curled up together, their usual mirror image pose. Tiana bookmarked her spot but let the novel rest in her lap. Maya and Jasmine sat close, their hands linked. Dad looked at them, his daughters, his family, and added a new entry. "Dear Sarah, they surprised me today. Our girls, yes, ours, because you led me to them. They threw a party. Not just any party, but a celebration of our journey. They've been writing to you too, sharing their hearts, their memories. Remember how we worried about having enough love? Looking at them now, I realize love isn't a finite resource. It grows, multiplies, spills over until it fills every corner of this house that was always meant for them." The movie played on, forgotten, as their family sat together, complete at last. 1 year. The thought hit Robert as he stood in his kitchen, watching the morning chaos unfold. 1 year since he'd first heard about 6 sisters needing a home. "Dad," Ashley's voice carried down the stairs. "Have you seen my ballet shoes?" "Check the laundry room," he called back. They'd found a way to afford the classes, the whole family picking up odd jobs, the community pitching in. Her first recital was tonight. Jasmine rushed past with 2 lunch bags. Maya forgot hers again. "I'll drop it off on my way to study group." The study group she led at the community center now, helping other kids while earning money for college. Her acceptance letter to the state university had come yesterday, full scholarship. "Don't forget we're meeting at Ashley's school first," Robert reminded her. 5 o'clock sharp. The twins thundered down the stairs next, matching outfits but opposite energies as usual. Zoe chattering about her student council campaign, Olivia quietly reviewing note cards for her presentation. "Dad, can you quiz me one more time?" Olivia asked. After breakfast, he promised. "Where's Tiana?" "Library." Maya appeared, grabbing an apple. "Early meeting for the book club she started." Robert smiled, remembering the quiet girl who used to hide behind books. Now she was helping other kids discover their love of reading. The morning routine had become a dance they all knew by heart. Breakfast dishes in the dishwasher, backpacks checked, hair done, his braids now earning Kim's approval, shoes found, hugs exchanged. As the girls headed out, Robert caught Jasmine's arm. "Hey, you okay? You've been quiet." She hesitated. "Just thinking. It's been a year." "Yeah, He pulled her into a hug. Best year of my life. Mine too. She hugged him back fiercely. Love you, Dad. After they left, Robert walked through the house, no longer empty, no longer silent. Photos covered the walls now. The professional family portrait hung in the living room, but his favorites were the candid shots. Maya's first debate team victory. The twins' science fair project. Tiana reading to Ashley. Jasmine's graduation photos. His phone buzzed. A text from Linda. Everything ready for tonight? He smiled. The girls thought they were just going to Ashley's recital. They didn't know about the surprise party afterward, celebrating 1 year as a family. The doorbell rang. Carol stood on the porch, holding a thick folder. Ready to make it official? She asked. Robert's heart leaped. The final adoption papers. They'd been working toward this for months, but the timing couldn't be better. Tonight, he said, after the recital. One last surprise. They've come so far, Carol remarked, following him inside. All of you have. She was right. The changes were everywhere. The school had implemented new anti-racism policies. The community center had started a support group for adoptive families. Even Mrs. Peterson was now their biggest champion, organizing neighborhood fundraisers for Ashley's ballet classes. But the biggest changes were in his daughters. Maya hadn't been in a fight all semester. She was too busy leading the school's new cultural awareness club. The twins had found their balance. Zoe's outgoing nature helping Olivia find her voice. Olivia's quiet strength keeping Zoe grounded. Tiana's book club had become so popular the library gave them their own room. Ashley's nightmares had all but disappeared. And Jasmine, Robert smiled, remembering her college acceptance speech. I never thought I'd have this chance. But my dad taught me that family means believing in each other's dreams. He spent the afternoon preparing. The community center was already decorated. Purple streamers again, Sarah's favorite. The photo slideshow was ready, showing their journey from that first awkward dinner to now. The cake would arrive just before they did. His phone kept buzzing with updates. Ashley nailed her dress rehearsal. Her dance teacher, book club kids made her good luck cards. Tiana campaign posters looking good. Zoe presentation went great. Thank you for the practice. Olivia won the debate. Celebration tonight. Maya, everything's perfect. See you at 5. Jasmine Robert stood in Sarah's favorite spot by the kitchen window. You should see them. Love, he whispered. They are amazing. He opened his journal, reading through the year's entries. The hard moments, bills, prejudice, doubts. The triumphs, first report cards, school victories, community acceptance. The quiet joys, movie nights, Saturday pancakes, bedtime stories. The last entry caught his eye. Dear Sarah, remember that promise you made me make? To keep my heart open? I didn't understand then. Didn't know that 6 broken hearts would heal mine. That love multiplies when you share it. That family isn't about blood or color or matching DNA. It's about choice. Every day, we choose each other. At exactly 5 p.m., Robert arrived at Ashley's school. His daughters were already there, fussing over their youngest sister's ballet bun. Perfect timing, Jasmine said. We just finished her hair. You look beautiful, sweetheart, Robert told Ashley. She twirled in her purple tutu. Like a real ballerina. Exactly like a real ballerina. The recital was magical. Ashley didn't miss a step, her face glowing under the stage lights. Her sisters cheered the loudest when she took her bow. Ice cream to celebrate. Maya suggested afterward. Actually, Robert smiled. I have somewhere else in mind. They pulled up to the community center just as the sun was setting. Why are there so many cars here? Tiana asked. Let's find out. Robert led them to the door. The surprise was perfect. Their entire community waiting to celebrate them. The slideshow playing on the wall. The cake with 1 year strong, written in purple icing. But Robert had one more surprise. Girls, he called them together. This past year has been everything. You've made me a father, given me a family, filled our house with more love than I ever dreamed possible. He pulled out the folder Carol had brought. So today, on our 1 year anniversary, I have something to ask you. 6 pairs of eyes widened as he opened the folder. These are the final adoption papers. I know we're already a family in our hearts. But, would you make it official? Would you be my daughters, legally and forever? Ashley launched herself into his arms first. The others followed, a family hug that had become their signature. Is that a yes? Robert laughed through tears. Yes, 6 voices chorused. They signed the papers right there, surrounded by their community, their family. Later that night, back home, Robert had one last surprise. He gave each girl a small purple journal. I thought, maybe we could all write to Sarah now. As a family. Officially, they gathered in the living room, 7 journals open to fresh pages. Robert wrote first, "Dear Sarah, today our family became official. But the truth is, we've been a family since that first day. Since 6 sisters needed a home, and I needed a reason to fill this house with love again. You once made me promise to keep my heart open. Look what that promise brought us." One by one, the girls added their own words. Jasmine, "Dear other mom, I'm going to college. Dad says you'd be proud. I know I am. Proud to be his daughter. Proud of our family. Maya, we're changing things. At school, in the community. Dad taught us that love is worth fighting for. Tiana, the library named our book club Sarah's Readers, because Dad told them how you loved stories too. Zoe, the purple room still has stars. But now it has so much more. Memories, laughter, love. Olivia, I'm not scared anymore. Of speaking up, of being myself. Because I know I'm home. Ashley, dear other mom, because Dad says you'll always be my first other mom. I danced today. Dad says you love dancing too. Robert looked at his family, his daughters, writing their stories, sharing their hearts. The house wasn't too big anymore. It was just right. One last entry. Dear Sarah, our family portrait has an empty chair, but our hearts are full. Thank you for teaching me to love this big. For showing me that family is about choices, choosing to love, to fight, to stay. We choose each other. Every day. Forever.